Liverpool are temporarily top of the Premier League after defeating Newcastle United 1-0 at St James's Park thanks to a first-half strike from Naby Keita. You're watching the Debrief live on the Blood Red channel, courtesy of the Liverpool Echo, after a crucial title race win for the Reds. My name's Patrick Smith, and I'm once again joined by Matt Addison. So, Matt, a very important win, perhaps one that was, more comfortable than the scoreline of 1-0 suggests.
Yeah, there wasn't many chances for Newcastle, was there? I think when it's 1-0, you always have that in the back of your mind that it will only take one chance. And they did almost get in a couple of times. I think the sort of half-time analysis spends about half of it talking about a chance that was about 5 yards offside. So there was a good few of those that made it look a little bit less comfortable than what it was. But yeah, Liverpool, as soon as that Naby Keita goal went in, that kind of quietened the crowd down. It kind of gave Liverpool the ability really to just control it and put the foot on it. I'm sure we'll come to sort of individuals, but I thought James Milner was excellent coming in and being able to dictate the tempo. So yeah, relatively comfortable. You would have liked them to have taken one or two more of those chances just to give themselves that extra little bit of a cushion. But yeah, you can't have any complaints. 4 games to go and Liverpool are right up there. So yeah, all eyes on Manchester City, obviously, later today. But for Liverpool, we've said it all along, all they can do is win their own matches, and they've managed to do that again today.
I mean, as for Newcastle, quite surprising to see a game finally where a team doesn't just sit back with 2 banks of 4 and defend against us. They did come up and press us quite high. Do you think that was their downfall? Or do you think they'll be happy with the 1-0 reflection on the scoreline?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? I think if they had have just sat back, you would have fancied Liverpool to score at some point anyway. So it's not as if they'd have sat back, they definitely would have got something from the game. I think it was a relatively even fixture. It was one that Liverpool kind of held them at arm's length, but I don't know. I don't think Newcastle can really look back and have too many complaints. I know that the fans weren't particularly happy with the referee. I'm sure once they get home and see the replays like we've had the benefit of during the game, I'm sure they'll think of it very differently because, clearly Milner gets the ball for the first tackle. There was a couple of others that the referee got spot on as well. So, yeah, I don't think Newcastle really could have done much more than what they did. I think they'll probably go away thinking they played quite well. Maybe they could have done a little bit more, but it's not quite as simple as that when you're coming up against a team like Liverpool that presses you, and you've got Van Dijk and you've got Addison. It's not quite as easy as just being able to do a little bit more. I think Liverpool did well really to control it, and we've seen that a number of times. Like I said, it could have been more comfortable for them had they taken 1 or 2 more opportunities, but I think they've kind of have done that usual thing of not only giving themselves a rest in terms of the changes, but also just in terms of the way that they played there. They didn't really give Newcastle too much of the ball, didn't give them any encouragement to get back into the game. And yeah, it was a really tricky fixture, I think, on paper. And the fact that Liverpool have come through that with relative ease, I would say, I think that can only be a positive sign.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think the Newcastle fans will go home and be realising once they see the replays that a lot of their fouls that the fans thought were fouls weren't actually clean tackles. I think because they press so high and play far up, playing against Liverpool, they're probably the best team in the world. Dealing with that must have been a shock to them, hence them giving away a lot of fouls and a lot of refereeing decisions that had to be made. But one that was made, Matt, was for Liverpool's first goal. James Milner definitely winning the ball on Fabian Schär. Maybe Schär even goes through Milner a bit. And then what a finish from Naby Keita cutting in from the right-hand side.
Yeah, that's what the analysis should be about, isn't it? It's about the brilliant goal. I think it falls to Henderson, who passes it to Keita, that lovely little 1-2 that they've played. And yeah, then the ability just to take a breath, go around the goalkeeper and put the ball into the back of the net. I mean, he seems to score a lot when that midfield plays together. I think it's the same midfield that we saw against Manchester United and Atletico Madrid. And obviously Naby Keita scored in both of those games. The first goal scorer at Old Trafford from that kind of position on the right-hand side. It wasn't quite as easy for him today to do that. Showed a lot of composure. But I thought he had a really good game, actually. I think that the goal probably helped him in terms of his confidence. But he is just one of those players that when you're trying to control a football match, when you're trying to keep hold of the ball, he's one of those that you can just give him the ball, even with 2 or 3 players around him. And he's almost doing that kind of Wijnaldum job in a slightly different way. It's not like players are bouncing off him, but the ball can kind of go into him, pass it off. He can just, help you dictate that. And I think particularly when you've not got Thiago and Fabinho in there as well, I think that really, is a massive reason as to why Liverpool were in control there. So, yeah, excellent from him again. The best period, without a doubt, of his Liverpool career, I think, in terms of purely just not being injured so long term. Hopefully that can remain the case. That kind of remains to be seen. But yeah, it was a great goal as part of a really good performance. And yeah, like I said before, as soon as that goal went in, the match completely changed. Then Liverpool get themselves a goal in front. You fancy them to be able to keep a clean sheet. And I think the difficult thing really for Liverpool was trying to find that breakthrough, and for Naby Keita to do that with pretty much, an ease of just being able to squeeze through and put the ball in. Again, it just shows the quality and the composure that he's got. So, yeah, like I say, long may that continue.
Yeah, he's firing well today. Good to see him get a goal. Probably one of the most confident players, if there ever was, that we've seen. Of course, we saw Milner and Henderson as well, amongst many of the other midfielders fighting for that last spot, because given Fabinho and Thiago are our best two midfielders. How did Henderson get on in the six today, Matt? Do you reckon he played well?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's not necessarily his best position. I don't think it's a position that he particularly enjoys playing, but I think it was the right time to give at least one of Fabinho and Thiago a rest. Obviously, they've done both, which is great, and Liverpool have got through it. But yeah, I think he did okay. I think that the midfield looked quite balanced, actually. I think it was a nice looking midfield. Obviously, you look at it on paper and you think, well, Milner doesn't tend to play too many games. Henderson, it's not his best position. Naby Keita, we're still kind of getting used to this consistent version of him, if you like. It's not a midfield that maybe you would have been particularly comfortable with before kickoff, but I think that the way that it was kind of all meshed together, I think, Henderson and Milner, they can kind of do that defensive job together as a pair, and obviously then gives Keita a bit more of a license to get forward. So yeah, it was a nice balance. I think Henderson at the six did okay. Obviously, a big part of that is that he didn't have to do a load of defending. It wasn't like St. Maximin was getting loads of chances to run at him. I think Newcastle that will be the one regret that they do have, that they didn't manage to get him into a position to be able to run at Liverpool. I think we've seen, Anthony Gordon last week had a bit of success with it. Obviously, there's other elements, shall we say, of his game that weren't quite so impressive, but his ability to kind of carry the ball up the pitch is something that St. Maximin probably would have looked at and thought that he could have done as well. But yeah, I think Jordan Henderson and the Liverpool midfield did well to stop that. So yeah, obviously we know what they can do on the ball. They dictated it and did really well in that regard. Again, don't really think there's too much you can add to it other than that. He didn't do anything spectacular, but I think in that position, in that kind of game, that's exactly what you want. You leave the kind of the goal scoring, the more creative stuff to Naby Keita, and between them, they managed to get the job done.
When you mentioned there, Sir Maximin, he was sort of in a free role today, roaming wherever he wanted to. Someone who I thought dealt with him very well was Joe Gomez when he did try and go down that right defensive channel for us. Gomez, again, didn't put a foot wrong today, Matt, did he?
No, he's got the hardest job in the world, hasn't he? Trying to be Trent Alexander-Arnold when he's not there. But I think, again, he was absolutely superb. I think Robertson on the other side was excellent as well. But obviously, you kind of expect that. I think with Joe Gomez, we know what he can do defensively. But even that, it's not quite as easy as just saying, oh, well, he's a good defender. He's not necessarily a right back. He's very, very good at centre half, and that can translate, but it doesn't always. And I think we've seen a perfect sort of performance from him, really, to come in and deputise. I think his passing was excellent. That's not something we always see from him at right back. I think he's done it a couple of times now. He's obviously come in other matches. I can't remember the last time it was, but there was an Anfield game where he came in and gets the assist and puts a cross in. Obviously didn't quite do that today, but I thought, his ability to kind of take the ball under pressure, because Newcastle, like you said, were really kind of pushing Liverpool up high. They sensed a bit of an opportunity to get at them and use the crowd and the energy within St. James's Park. So I think that was really impressive from him. Obviously, the defending he had to do, you kind of come to expect that he'd be able to do that, but just in possession, on the ball as well, I thought he was really, really good. So yeah, it was a perfect chance to give Trent a rest. I think it was quite funny, him laughing at Jordan Henderson's free kick on the sideline as well. So a good little sign from him there as well, which is no bad thing, I wouldn't have thought. So yeah, I think it was a good performance. I wouldn't expect to see Joe Gomez too many times before the end of the season, but I think the fact that Jurgen Klopp felt he could trust him to come into a game like this, I think says a lot about the kind of depth and quality that Liverpool have got at the moment.
Yeah, it was funny of Trent, wasn't it? They also showed a little clip of Thiago and Salah warming up, joking about who they thought was going to take it as well. But Matt, the talk of today is going to be the chances we missed, because 1-0, as I said at the top of the show, does flatter Newcastle, in my opinion. Numerous chances for Jota and Mane and Diaz as well. Do you think they'll be disappointed not to come away with at least a couple more from those chances they had?
Yeah, I think there were missed chances. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't particularly matter. I think, Diogo Jota hasn't been in the best form recently. I don't think he's been anywhere near the kind of level that he has been, for the majority of this season. I think the last few matches he's maybe not done quite so well. But I think, today he obviously didn't score, but he did kind of link the play a little bit better. The first 10 minutes, I thought Newcastle kind of used the crowd quite well and pushed Liverpool back. But Jota was one of those who was able to take the ball under pressure and get Liverpool up the pitch. So I think generally speaking, it was okay. I think Sadio Mane will be the one that will look back and think maybe that was a bit of a missed opportunity for him. I think there was one in the first half, certainly one in the second half that he should have done a lot better with. And that obviously could have killed the game and made life a little bit easier for Liverpool. But they've won the game. They've got the points. I don't think we need to make too much of it more than that, really. I think there will be matches before the end of this season where Liverpool have to kind of just take a 1-goal win, take the fact that they have to keep a clean sheet, and it will be a little bit nervous. It's not going to be plain sailing for every single game. The more they can make it that, the better. Obviously, not just for fans, but for themselves as well, to have a bit more of a rest. But I don't think we can have too many complaints today. I think if Liverpool had needed to go and get another goal, I think they probably had another gear or two that they could have gone to. So, yeah, a little bit frustrating they didn't do it quicker, but ultimately they've got the points.
Exactly that. It doesn't matter. We were so in control of that game. It was never really in doubt. I wasn't really particularly nervous, even though it was only 1-0. So, yeah, no qualm for the attackers there. But, Matt, of course, we are now top of the Premier League until at least 5:30. Whether that'll be the same story at 25-6, we'll never know. But is there a chance today that Leeds can cause an upset? Because Jesse Marsh in his press conference was talking about being a title manager, back in Austria and Germany. He wants to be pesky with Leeds today. Is there any hope that they could perhaps cause an upset for us?
I think there is. I think it's a tricky game for Manchester City. I think going away to Leeds United is never going to be easy. I think the kickoff time probably helps in terms of the crowd will be up for it. They've had the day to kind of prepare themselves for it. I think it probably helps as well that they've got something to play for. I know going into this Newcastle game, there was kind of a lot of talk of Newcastle's individual players having a lot to prove ahead of the summer. But for Leeds, it's more than that. I think if they were to get beat badly and maybe dropped a couple more points in the next couple of games, I think they could be dragged into that relegation scrap. So they've really got something to play for. If they can get something against City, I think that probably puts to bed any suggestion that they could get relegated. So plenty on the line for them, obviously plenty on the line for Liverpool as well. So maybe that's me just talking them up in hope more than expectation. But I think it is a real tricky game for Manchester City. We know they've got a couple of injuries. Kyle Walker's going to be out now for a couple more games. He's already been out, hasn't he? Possibly for the rest of this season. So I think someone like that against Leeds, in particular, the pace that he's got, that could be very tricky. And of course, City got one eye on the Champions League as well. A much more difficult game in the second leg than what Liverpool have got. So, yeah, Leeds away. I think that's always a game that you pinpoint as being tricky. Obviously, City could go there and win by 3 or 4 and make it really easy. But I really do fancy Leeds to do something. I think they'll make it difficult. I think it's probably going to be a close one, a little bit like the Newcastle one. And, who knows? It only takes, a red card or a little controversial decision here or there. It could be one of those where they get the points. But, yeah, Liverpool have got their job done. That's the only thing that they can think about. But I'm sure, Jurgen Klopp won't admit it. Liverpool's players won't admit it, but I'm sure they'll all be tuning in later on, and I certainly will be.
Yeah, they'll definitely have that on the bus or the train back to Liverpool tonight, won't they? But it is definitely all eyes on Leeds and fingers crossed. But that's all we've got time for on the debrief today. Thank you all for watching with myself, Patrick Smith, and Matt Addison. We'll shortly have Jurgen Klopp's press conference and Eddie Howe's available after the Liverpool-Newcastle game. But for myself, Patrick Smith, and Matt Addison, it's goodbye for now.